Good. We will call this meeting to order February 18th, 2025. I guess after the pledge, if you would please stand and join us for a moment of silence in honor of the victims of the tragic murder-suicide in Byron, Wyoming, and also to recognize the lives lost and injured directly above us here at the courthouse in the Green River Tunnel tragedy last Friday. Justice for all. All right, good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum present this morning with 4 out of 5 commissioners in attendance. First order of business this morning, commissioners, is the approval of the agenda. I would ask if there are any changes, and if not, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve the agenda by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next, under tab A is a public hearing from the Planning and Zoning Department. We've got certified resolution to the 2015 zoning resolution 2502 CC01, sections 3, 4I, 5F, 7, 11D, 19, and 21. With us this morning is Land Use Director Eric Bingham. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on December 17th, 2024, the Board of County Commissioners announced its intent to adopt amendments to the Sweetwater County zoning resolution in accordance with Wyoming State Statute and the Administrative Procedures Act. We held a 45-day comment period that has lapsed, and we are here to certify Resolution 2502 CC01. Just to summarize what the language amendments are. One is that we are adopting the 2024 International Fire Code. We were required by state law to adopt the same code that the State Fire Marshal's Office does. So in order to maintain home rule. So that is the purpose of that. The other main area of change is the definitions, as we added definitions. So that gives staff clarity when someone comes in and applies for a use, you actually have a definition of that. So Cassidy worked really hard, got those definitions put in. The RV section was not recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and needs additional work. So we're going to go back, hold some workshops and get through that. It was actually a can of worms once I started opening it up. So we've got a lot more work to do there. So that's not quite ready for prime time. So the application fees is noted in here, but there's no changes to the application fees. We just moved it into earlier in the code. So when the public is opening the book, we actually have the application fees more towards the front of the code. So we have received no public comment in the 45 days, Mr. Chairman. I asked the board to certify Resolution 2502 CC01. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thanks, Eric. Any questions, comments on the resolution, commissioners? I believe we need to have a public hearing for this. So at this time, if there's anyone online or in the audience who would like to speak to the proposed resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I'd move to approve Resolution 25-02-CC-01 and approve certification of the amended rules and regulations of the Sweetwater County zoning resolution, which includes amendments to sections 3, 4I, 5F, 7, 11D, 19, and 21 of the Sweetwater County zoning resolutions.
Thanks, Commissioner. We do have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second that.
A second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Eric.
Chairman, we'll see you a little bit later.
Appreciate it. That's going to move us right along into the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. This time, if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the governing body, we generally allow 3 minutes to do such, and now would be the appropriate time. Good morning, Assessor Divas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to update the commission. Senate File 69 is on the House general file today, so it is something that should come up. I looked and I think there's 4 or 5 amendments this morning, and the amendments that I saw are actually changing the 50% reduction to 25%. So that's something that may lessen the impact of that a little bit as well. And they are actually, I think the original bill had a $2 million. It was 50% up to 2 million. I think there was a version of $1 million, and there was also a version of 500,000. So still in the works. It's still being massaged. I don't know how it's going to end up. Those are the amendments that I saw this morning. I believe that'll start about 10. So I'll be, didn't know C-SPAN was must-see TV, but now it is. So we'll be watching that as the morning progresses. So, okay, just let you know.
Very good. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you attending the town hall that Mayor Mickelson had too, and sharing a lot of your data and background. It's a lot more complex than I think a lot of people realize, and it's difficult to explain given all of the different angles and taxes. And I thought you did a good job with that. So I appreciate you being there and for getting us the information needed to help as well.
And as we have another assessor meeting tomorrow afternoon, another Zoom call regarding what happens to Senate File 69 today, the Department of Revenue be involved. And we may be able to get updated versions of that information that I gave you with the newest information after they work on it today. So
Okay.
hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right.
Comments, questions, commissioners?
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Still under Mr. Treasurer. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just wanted to update, attended the meeting Saturday, had a lot of fun there. Great turnout for those people at the town hall. One of the things that I posted on the county treasurer website was an update to kind of clarify some possible misinformation that occurred during that session. One of the topics was the increase in revenue from the year 22 to 23. And so there are some updates on the treasurer's Facebook page about what happened during that time period. All of it had to do with mineral taxes and the way we collect mineral taxes during that time period. So if you want to update, go on the county treasurer website. We're going to keep updating there and putting the information on there for people so that they understand what actually occurred.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Mark. And I thought you explained it very well. I did see that post, and it looks as though revenues increased drastically, but I don't think people understand how the collection of those taxes came about with Senate File 60 and the delay, with how that, I guess, moved forward. So it does make the numbers look construed, but I mean, if you go back and look to years previous to that to where we're at now, they're right in line. So
Exactly. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's very confusing. It took me quite a while to grasp what actually occurred because there's a lot of factors that go into play there. So, but if you have questions, call the office. We're happy to help you. Call me. I'm happy to work with you. One other thing, Assessor Davis talked about the charts. If you go on and you look at your personal property tax statement, it'll give you a pie chart. That system has crashed. So we're working on getting that updated right now so that the pie charts actually show. So
very good. Okay. Comments, commissioners? Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. We are still under county resident comments and concerns. Final call. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Laura McKee. And so I think part of what we were talking about at the meeting that caused some confusion, and I haven't got to see what the treasurer had put on there yet, but there's a section in the on the Sweetwater County on your budget for the county, and it's page 10, your page 10, but there's an index, so it's down a little bit further, but it says general real property tax current and delinquent, and then it has the numbers in there. In 2024, it said it was 34,636,000. So just say 34.5 million, good enough, 34.6 million. And then in 2023, it showed 28.9. So I'm going to meet with Davis as well. And then in 2022, it was 14.1. So it was a large difference, and it's just called GEN. So for general, real property tax, current and delinquent. So that caused a lot of confusion that, and I know that Darren McCann had brought up the, because on the website from the county, it showed for the estimated revenue summary on page 9, it said the full taxes, how much was collected, which was like 22.8 million in 2022, 38.5 in 2023, and 45.5 in 2024. And then it breaks it down into the detail after that, right? So that's not, the taxes there is not just property taxes. That's all the other sales tax. It's got, all those different things, cigarette, severance. But I think it's really important for the community to be able to be involved in the budget process so that we can understand it better and to get clarifications on those things, and, so that we understand how it all works too, because we need to be accountable for not going to the budgets and not understanding what's going on, so because as taxpayers, we should know, and we should bring up questions and talk about it and have you educate us on how it works.
No, thanks, Laura. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your interest in wanting to figure out what all those numbers mean and how they come about. It is complex. It's difficult to kind of wrap your head around. Part of what you're seeing, and the treasurer explained this on his Facebook page, was in 2021, the legislature passed Senate File 60, which changed the way that the ad valorem taxes were collected. So previous, the counties would, or I guess we would receive those, what was it, 18 months in arrears? And they changed that to a monthly collection. And so what happened was they deferred some of those collections. I believe it was for an entire year and 18 months. And so
Right.
that's why you see the dip during that budget in 2022, in fiscal year 22. And then there's different language within that bill where they pay, I think it was up to 50% of that amount by December 1st of, I think it was 2023. And then they, from there on after, pay about 8% of the remaining 50% to catch up with. And so it changed the entire distribution for our mills, the 12 mil, the county 12 mil that we have on your personal property tax statement. It used to define, the hospital, the events complex, any of our component units. Now that has now since changed to where the county takes the full 12 mil and just does a direct distribution to those component units. So that makes it look as though revenues have also inflated, when in fact, it's just a difference of, it's how it's defined. But
Okay.
the two gentlemen that you spoke about know this farther in depth and
Yes,
can more
yes.
readily explain it. It is difficult, but that's some of what took place, which is why the numbers look the way they do.
Right. And one other thing I just wanted to see if I could ask is, do we have any kind of loans out right now as a county?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that would be on
what
the
was it,
specific
Deb
purpose tax.
What was it called? A specific purpose tax?
Yeah, that the voters passed. That was the 1 cent, the sixth penny it's
Oh,
referred
yeah,
to
yeah,
as.
yeah.
So there's bonds out for that are obviously subject to be paid back. But as far as loans that the county has, no.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. Still under county resident comments and concerns. Final chance. We will go ahead and close county resident comments and concerns. And commissioners, this will bring us right along into tab B, which is our consent agenda. Before you this morning are 7 items. First being the approval of the February 4th, 2025 meeting minutes. Approval of the county vouchers, warrants, the expenditure approval listing, and the commissioner's report. Approval of bonds, approval of monthly reports, the approval of the hospital maintenance expenditures, a request to staff 3 seasonal truck driver positions in the road and bridge department, and a request to restaff a vacant position in the purchasing department. Commissioners, I would ask if there's any requests to remove any of these items off of the consent agenda this morning. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Jones.
so moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Gonna move us right along into commissioner comments. Commissioner Slaughter was up first, which generally means he'd be buying lunch, but he got off easy like Commissioner Jones a couple meetings ago. So Commissioner Tillman, the floor is yours, and it looks like you get the tab today.
Dang, I was going to take you to the senior center, but I didn't get time to reserve that. I have to have a break so I can see if they can handle you. All right, moving right along. February 7th, we had our federal partners meeting via Zoom. Commissioner Slaughter chaired that meeting. We had updates from the Ashland National Forest and Seaskiddy National Wildlife Refuge. BLM did not participate. But the best news is that President Trump issued Executive Order 14154 and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum issued Secretarial Order number 3418, Unleashing American Energy, having to do with removing burdensome and ideologically motivated regulations that have impeded the development of energy and natural resources. My opinion is the greatest error that Rock Springs and the state BLM officials made is that they did not follow their own rules on special designations, and they walked away from us, the locally elected voice of the people in those cooperator meetings, when they diverted to alternative B without analysis, that conservation alternative. They did that 3 years ago without speaking to any of us who had been engaged for 12 years in the process. So that's my 2 cents on that topic. I will be attending the NACO conference February 26th to March 5th in Washington, DC. That's our annual National Association of County Elected Officials, along with other county commissioners from Wyoming. And so hopefully we will be getting to visit with some of our new leaders in DC. Today, I'll work with Sally to send out our invites to our federal agency partners, requesting which date they might prefer in April 1st or the 15th to provide their annual updates to the commission. February 14th, I met with Lindsay Travis, our county library director. I shall attend their board meeting later today as liaison. They are in the process of updating library policies. It was exciting to see all of the things that happen in our libraries. I also toured the Fine Arts Center. Great news here is that Lindsay and our amazing grants director, Cassina, drove to Cheyenne to the State Land Investment Board meeting, and they were able to secure a $100,000 grant to update the HVAC system on White Mountain Library. That same day, the tunnel accident, our thoughts and prayers go out to all who were involved in that tragic event and our first responders. I was arriving in Green River that day, so I was at the end of the line as it started getting diverted through town, and the black smoke boiling out of those tunnels, it just was chilling to watch that. A local Farson, a woman is recovering from her injuries in Salt Lake. 3 others did not survive. On the 15th, I attended Mayor Mickelson's town hall meeting at 2 o'clock. The 2 meetings were well attended. Assessor Divis provided education on the property tax system, and I stated in that meeting that he should be in all of our schools teaching that class because I'm not sure they're doing a very good job of that. I'm proud of the citizens that showed up to be educated, and they were, I think, very interested in learning more about our property taxes and what's happening in Cheyenne. The sad part is that our Cheyenne officials, not all of them, seem to be up to speed on what the laws are and are proposing many laws that they don't have any jurisdiction over. And that was very disheartening to even hear that. Information was provided on the upcoming legislative changes and the impacts they will have on our communities and counties. Upcoming for me, coalition meeting in Lyman on Thursday, February 20th. The Golden Hour meets next Tuesday. Next Wednesday, I fly off to DC. So that concludes my report.
Thanks, Commissioner. Safe travels to you. Any comments or questions for Commissioner Tillman?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards?
Commissioner Tillman, you said $100,000 on that library grant, but I believe it was $546,000 that SLIB awarded us through the MRG grants program. So the $100,000 was the share of the project that the library is going to fund from their current funds, and then our share will be $446,980, and then SLIB's picking up half of the entire cost of the project.
Thank you. I must get an update from you as former liaison. And I did see that email. I should have read the whole email. I just latched onto the 100,000. So thank you.
Very good. Good job to Lindsay and Christina for going after that. Commissioner Richards, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just want to start off by offering my condolences to all those who were affected by the tragedy that our community faced over the weekend. Their families that lost loved ones and others that are suffering injuries from the crashes, and they can all use our thoughts and prayers. I also want to thank all the first responders who put themselves in harm's way, not just on that day, but every day on our behalf. I'm extremely proud of this community's ability to step up to a time of crisis. That goes for the hospital too. I saw a few comments disparaging our hospital, and I have to push back on that. We have a phenomenal hospital, and they immediately went into full emergency response mode and took care of this community when they had to. I know the aftermath has created a lot of impact to traffic along Flaming Gorge Way, but I'd like to remind everyone that some extra traffic and the need to plan for a little extra commute time pales in comparison to the loss of life and injuries that families are facing. Green River and the Wyoming Department of Transportation are doing everything they can to minimize the traffic impacts, and I urge everyone to resist the impulse to second guess every single decision they make, because while I know that everyone in the Facebook comments is a bona fide expert on traffic safety, routing options truly are limited, and real experts are making decisions with your convenience, but most importantly, your safety in mind. When they get traffic switched to head through the tunnel, it won't be any different than when they have done it countless times in the past during regular construction. They'll set appropriate speeds and have all the safety barriers in place. It's going to get better. After I saw all of you last on the 7th, I attended the enterprise meeting at the hospital where we had a presentation from Dr. Ann Alexander, who is the assistant dean of the College of Business and the director of outreach and engagement for the Center of Business and Economic Analysis at the University of Wyoming. Long title. She gave us a very interesting overview of Sweetwater County's economic outlook, way more detailed than I have time to get into here, but Rick provided us copies of the slide deck she used, and I'd be happy to share that with you if any of you haven't received it. Following that, I attended the local emergency response team meeting at the Sheriff's Office training room, where the Rock Springs Fire Department demonstrated some new equipment that they've invested in, which is a tethered aerial drone that can be deployed at an emergency scene. Basically, they open the case, connect it to power, and it flies straight up to a tethered height of 50 meters, gives them a 360-degree bird's eye view of the entire scene with both thermal and regular cameras, so they can map the hot spots of a burning building, for example, and know exactly where to aim their firefighting efforts. Pretty interesting technology. They chose a tethered drone for a few reasons. First, it's connected to power, so it's not time limited in how long they can use it, and it can stay airborne as long as they need it to. Also, since it's tethered, there doesn't need to be a licensed pilot to operate it, and there aren't any issues with sending it up for fear of violating any no-fly zones. It's pretty cool technology and has the potential to save lives, so if you get the chance, I encourage you to check it out. I was not able to stay for their tabletop disaster planning session, though, because I had to go down the hall to where Chairman West and I met with Sheriff Grossnickel and Mayor Wolf from Superior to discuss Superior's law enforcement needs. I think it was a productive meeting, and I believe we all found some common ground moving forward out there. Just another note on that, that response team meets regularly and they tabletop possible disasters around the community. And in that case, they were tabletopping a disaster at the airport. And they put together people from all over the county, including elected officials, department heads, law enforcement officials, firefighters, and also people from industries from around the county. And they all brainstorm what to do when there's a disaster. Now, my understanding is emergency management wasn't activated during what happened at the tunnel. And I did see some comments online. Why haven't they practiced for this? They do. They practice for emergencies on a regular basis, and they try to think of every possible thing that can happen. And it's impossible to do that, but they train and they train hard. And when a disaster like that happens, the people who have to respond to it are ready, and they're out there to protect us. So later that afternoon, I packed up the family and headed out for a long planned vacation. While I was there, I was mostly off grid, but I was able to check in occasionally. I responded to some constituent inquiries, and I tried to keep track of some of what has been going on during the legislative session. But I think I'll reserve most of my comments on that subject because I want to stay positive today. I streamed the morning session of Mayor Mickelson's town hall, and I commend him on putting together a packed house to discuss the possible impacts of property tax cuts on local communities. Heard a few legislators make some really informed commentary and others not so much. I want to thank Treasurer Cowan for his post over the weekend clarifying some misinformation that was provided by a legislator at that event. I've seen a lot of numbers flying around out there and in comments on social media that simply don't coincide with our actual budget numbers, and I appreciate Mark stepping in to clear up some of that missing context. On Saturday, I remotely attended the governor's update on the tunnel crash that he held here in our meeting room. I want to thank him as well as all the officials who attended to keep everyone updated on what was going on up the hill. I made it back home at about 3:30 a.m. on Monday morning, and after delayed flights, missed connections, and a lot of sitting around airports, and then a 4.5-hour drive through what probably should have been closed roads. And that brings me up to the present. Going forward, tomorrow morning, I have an airport board meeting followed by a housing task force meeting. On Thursday, I will spend most of the day with the SEDC as well as the team from Insight discussing their findings from their previous visit to the county. On Friday, I plan to attend the congressional tour planning meeting in Commissioner Slaughter's stead. I do want to commend Commissioner Slaughter for the work he's put in there. He has already handled almost all the details of the Sweetwater County portion of the tour, and I'm really just going to the meeting as a placeholder for him. And that brings up back to previous comments I've made about the WCCA and how important it is to our job. Another local legislator ran a bill to basically ban us from being members of an organization like the WCCA. She's made some public record requests to get our information, which happy to share what we spend with the WCCA and what we get for it. This congressional tour is one of the benefits of being a part of a group like WCCA. They split the state into 4 or 5 regions. And every year, organized through the WCCA, we bring congressional staffers from all over the country because people from all over the country have a hand. Congress people from all over the country have a hand in the laws that govern us here in Wyoming. And they need to know what we do here, what our landscape looks like, what an oil well looks like, what a gas well looks like, what the Flaming Gorge looks like when it's 10 feet below max water line. And this congressional tour that'll come through Sweetwater County in August, we'll have staffers from those Congress people, and we will have them for 3 days throughout Southwest Wyoming, telling them what our needs are. So it's a really important tool that we have. Commissioner Toman talked about NACO and going to Washington, D.C., where commissioners can have their voices heard at the national level. And we do that through these membership organizations, and we wouldn't be able to do that without them. So it's really important to keep that in mind. On the 26th, I'll attend the Southwest Southwest Counseling Boards meeting. And on the 28th, I'll be back here with all of you for the Rock Springs Chamber of Commerce's Boost Leadership Academy workshop. I'm looking forward for the chance to work with up and coming leaders from our community that have been participating in that academy so far. That's all I have scheduled before we meet again here for our regular BOCC meeting on the 4th, but I'm sure more items will pop up on my agenda before then. In closing, I wanted to say to you, Mr. Chairman, I hope you enjoyed your vacation. Looks like Mr. Slaughter is on his right now. Commissioner Jones, I want to thank you for the work you've been doing with the news that has come from the president's desk, as well as out of the Department of Interior. The landscape has changed in the last couple weeks, and I'm hoping it's changed for the better. Commissioner Toman, you as well. I know how engaged you've been on federal issues over the years, and the groundwork you laid has allowed for much of our ability to respond to the disaster that was the Rock Springs RMP. Thanks to all the work you've all done, as well as the work by Eric and John. It looks like there's plenty of good news in our future on that front. That's all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman. Happy to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the report. Glad to hear you had a good time away as well.
Absolutely.
Questions or comments for Commissioner Richards' report? With none, Commissioner Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without going into any great length, I too give my condolences to all the families affected by the accident in the tunnel. Just a horrific situation. I think it's worth mentioning yet again, thanking our first responders. I can only imagine what it must be like to be in their shoes. Thankfully, I'm not in their shoes, but I really can't thank them enough, because that has to be one of the most difficult positions you could ever put yourself in. And they do it, and they know they do it. So my hat's off to them. I did notice a post from the hospital showing cards and flowers from the local Smith's grocery store, thanking the hospital for all they did. I think there are a lot of examples like that in our community, and we seem to be having somewhat of a divide here lately in this community. And unfortunately, it takes an incident like that to really pull people together. And so I really hope that we can remember where we are as a community today and move forward, and maybe be a little nicer to each other and ask a few more questions rather than assume. On February 5th, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County monthly board meeting. Most of what was covered, I've already reported on, although one topic that was sent to me in an email question was the hospital transitioning to critical care. I know I've talked about this in our meetings for about a year. The hospital's had it on their agenda for the board, I should say, has had it on their agenda for, I don't even know, over a year. I'm not sure how long, but the change is essentially just a classification change, which changes the reimbursement rate from the federal government to the hospital. It's a higher reimbursement rate. So it's good news for the hospital financially, but essentially that's all it does. There is no change to the care. Some people have expressed concerns that it went from a 99-bed hospital to now under 25. The hospital has always operated at that level under 25. The 99 is just a classification. We've never been staffed for 99 beds that I know of. So it is just a classification change. The bright side to it really is that with a higher reimbursement rate, there is a possibility that the hospital would have a little more money. So maybe they could create some different services, newer equipment, whatever the case may be. So certainly all for positive reasons, but not to the detriment of Sweetwater County or anybody living in Sweetwater County. On the 6th, I attended the enterprise meeting, as Commissioner Richards mentioned. It was a great meeting. We were provided information going back as far as 1939 up until the present time, talked about boom and bust cycles, how they've changed over the decades because they aren't all the same, what the future looks like. She covered a variety of topics such as our population, unemployment, income, gross county product, industries, housing, et cetera. So it was very comprehensive and very interesting. And we did get the slideshow. So if anybody is interested in it, I'd be more than happy to share it. I thought it was a really well put together presentation. On the 7th, I also attended the federal partners meeting. It's already been reviewed who was there. Certainly sad that notably the BLM declined to attend, but we are where we are with them. On the 13th, I testified in front of the Senate Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, Cultural Resource Committee regarding snowmobile registration sticker fee increases. The snowmobile community, which I'm a member of, overall strongly supports this user fee increase. It's in order to keep our trail system the way in the condition that it's in, fund the program. There hasn't been an increase in 12 years, I believe it is. So obviously inflation has gone up every year over the last 12 years, but what we pay has not. So it's to a point where if we want to continue that program, the users, we all need to spend some more money on that. And that'll affect residents and non-residents and commercial users. There's also a little portion in there for vintage snowmobiles. So it's an important program. Snowmobiling generates about $255 million a year. At least that's what it came out of a 2020 and 2021 study by UW. So generates $255 million a year for the state of Wyoming. So it's a pretty important thing. This increase will be a matter of about $2.38 a day on average for when we use the trail system. So pretty minimal. I have spent a large amount of time working with Mr. Bingham and Mr. De Leon on the BLM RMP and where we go from here. We're going to discuss a little bit of that more later, so I won't get into too much in depth, but it does seem like we have a chance at a good direction. I think probably one of the biggest concerns is, for me anyway, is nobody's really been all the way down this path before. So where do we go and how do we get there is not perfectly clear. We think with the help of Eric and John and their tremendous amount of knowledge and time, we're gonna do a good job for Sweetwater County. But will be interesting to see BLM's take on it now with all the orders that have been issued in the new administration. So more to come. On the 15th, I assisted in the fun run in the Upper Green put on by the Sweetwater Snowpoke Snowmobile and ATV Club. That's why I wasn't at the town halls. I've mentioned here a couple of times the passing of a longtime friend, Robert Chandler. And this year, the fun run was done in memory of Robert. And he was past president of the club, strong supporter of snowmobiling in general. He's very generous with his donations, both financial assistance and his time to help make our club stronger over the years. For anybody who's snow machining has been to the Blind Bull Safety Shelter, Robert was instrumental in rebuilding the Blind Bull Safety Shelter. Was also a large reason why we put on a snowcross event in Rock Springs at the events complex several years ago, for anybody who might remember that. But there's just a few examples of his hard work and generosity, so it was very fitting to hold this event in his honor. I was fortunate enough to lead Robert's wife, his daughter, his son-in-law, and his granddaughter in the granddaughter's first poker run, or it's fun run, I guess I should say. So I led him on the first half of the run. Was more than happy to do that. It was good to see the family out there, and it's obviously still a tough time for all of them. But granddaughter is about 4 years old, and she just kept telling her mom, "Let's go." So I think we have a new snow machiner coming up in the ranks. So due to that fun run, I was unable to attend the town halls and the briefing on the tunnel crash. I did watch the videos from Saturday. And so again, my heart goes out to everybody involved in the tunnels. I was able to watch the morning town halls. The afternoon session wasn't recorded, or at least not that I can find. I was thrilled by how many citizens showed up to City Hall and took the time to speak and learn. I would like to thank those electeds who spoke in order to clear up misunderstandings and misinformation being spread around. Seems many people understand our property tax dollars don't go to the state, but not everybody understands that. So it is good to get some of that stuff cleared up. That money does not go into the rainy day account. Excuse me. One of our freshman legislators seems to be very confused and uninformed, as he cannot seem to understand budgets other than to cherry pick a couple of numbers and insinuate government is somehow hiding or wastefully spending taxpayer money. This, of course, isn't true, but it's simply a lack of ability to understand government and budgeting. Same legislator then gets on Facebook and somehow bashes the city posting our budget. So just really, really uninformed folks out there. But I appreciate the mayor putting everything together, and hopefully the citizens left with a better understanding of how government works. It's a complicated system, complicated budgets. It's not easy to understand. I think we all know that, and partially why we're changing our program for how we do our budgets. And I think that'll should be a positive change. But with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any comments or questions for Commissioner Jones's report? If not, looks like I got to be the redundant one today. After our last meeting, as Commissioner Richards pointed out, we attended a meeting at the Sheriff's Office with Mayor Wolf from the town of Superior in regards to patrol services that they had brought to our attention or spoke to in one of our previous meetings. I'm happy to report, as Commissioner Richards mentioned, that cooler heads prevailed, and I thought each party was very professional and respectful of one another, and it seems as though there's a mutual understanding moving forward. So I commend all those in attendance and appreciate those efforts. I spent all last week on a large boat in the Caribbean, which was sunshine and 80 degrees every single day, which is a little bit different than the return home, but good recharge nonetheless. Unfortunately, I learned of the tragic tunnel accident that's been mentioned, which occurred obviously last Friday, the final day of my trip. The next day, I was in attendance here for the governor's press conference in the chambers with executives from YDOT, the Highway Patrol, and several first responders who were actively responding and investigating the unfortunate incident. There appears to be great collaboration and an outpouring of support from the community, stepping up in any way they can to help. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all those affected by the tragedy, and we certainly thank our first responders and local hospital for their quick and selfless call to action. Prior to the governor's press conference, I attended the morning town hall that Mayor Mickelson hosted. There was lots of good discussion and community feedback there. It was well attended, as has been mentioned, with standing room only and a lot of people having to wait in the lobby. Lots of good information, some inaccurate information like we've already discussed. I think it really just shows the importance of people needing to dive in and educate themselves on the numbers and the understanding, especially some of our newer legislators who are voting on, these very momentous bills that have a large, impact to the communities they represent. I just can't stress enough that knowledge is power, and, everyone has the right to their own opinion, but when you're out spreading misinformation, you're certainly going to get a reaction from this body. So throughout the recent weeks, I've read that government needs to find a way to get by with less. They have plenty of money. They hide it. They need to be audited. We are, by the way, we pay for that audit. And our budget is online and transparent. And as mentioned from our treasurer and assessor this morning, any of us are happy to meet with the public to try and get a better understanding as to where your tax dollars are going. Perhaps we're a little at fault for not educating, the public, and I guess our constituencies better, but we also rarely see any of those in attendance expressing an interest. So thanks to those that do. There is a lot of interest from a keyboard on social media, but unfortunately, that's how a lot of that misinformation gets spread. Bills like Senate File 69, which is obviously the ongoing conversation, the property tax cut, are nothing new. We suffered cuts last year when the legislature tackled property tax reform. They backfilled some, they didn't backfill others. We absorbed those that weren't. And we dealt with changes in the direct distribution. We've witnessed our very own vote against measures that were a benefit for this county. And I guess one can argue that's politics, but at some point there will be a breaking point, and we can only hope that the damages aren't too severe when that time comes. I thought it would be important to highlight many of the improvements and overall cost savings that have taken place countywide to help demonstrate the challenges that Sweetwater County has already faced over the last decade plus relative to reduced revenues and how they've altered the county's operations. To be clear, we will survive whatever changes are placed upon us from the legislature this year. This Board of County Commissioners have been fiscally responsible in the handling of the most recent budgets. Excuse me. And we will continue to do so as challenges arise. I think it goes without saying that services will look different, and many partner agencies will be the first to feel the effects as we maintain the county's core functions as a top priority, followed then by our component agencies. We've been vocal about our disappointment with a handful of bills being pushed through on the east side of the state, largely attributed to the belief that the counties will not take a hit, specifically by a 50% property tax reduction. A 50% reduction in residential property tax is estimated at almost $2 million to Sweetwater County's 12 mil. And that's just one example. Recent amendments have reduced that loss to around 410,000 if they hold, which we can guarantee will not be the case. Once the House is done, and you heard from Assessor Davis this morning, there's 3 or 4 more amendments coming. We still have conference committee, reconciliation, before it hits the governor's desk. Then there's the option for a veto override potentially. So a lot is likely to change between now and then. And let's certainly not forget the People's Initiative that will be on the next ballot as well, aimed at a 50% property tax reduction. There have been great attempts over the last decade to reduce government and increase efficiency here in Sweetwater County. In 2010, the county had a workforce of 323 full-time employees. Presently, the county has 246 budgeted and improved full-time positions, with 216 currently filled. That's a reduction of 77 positions, or 107 if you count those unfilled, all of which were accomplished through attrition and avoiding layoff. The departments and administrations who accomplished this deserve a great deal of credit. The savings have accounted for just shy of $3 million at their peak annually, with a total savings of $22 million over the timeline mentioned, understanding that not all of those reductions took place at once. Along with reductions in staffing came reorganization. The land use department was reduced and moved out from underneath engineering. The Parks and Recreation Board was dissolved and staff were placed under Public Works. Road and Bridge eliminated their director positions and were placed under Public Works. The Building Maintenance Department had a director position eliminated, and the department followed suit under Public Works. The County Fire Department was dissolved and contracted out to neighboring agencies offering the same services. And various other county departments took drastic measures to reduce their staffing levels while ensuring adequate services remained. Though some of these consolidation efforts brought forth increased pay for certain positions, the savings from not only salaries, but most certainly the associated benefits remain much less than the previous practice and were justified by those who took on additional responsibilities and supervisory roles with far less staff. The Sheriff's Office employs 88 of the county's 216 currently filled positions and continues to remain fiscally responsible under Sheriff Grossnickel's leadership. The agency's budget has seen increases subject to and consistent with local inflation, maintaining a flat request for the past 6 years, aside from capital improvements, cost of living adjustments, rising healthcare insurance rates, and the mandatory retirement contributions. Workforce adjustments have also improved efficiency, with full-time equivalent positions being reduced from 99 in fiscal year 19 to 88 in fiscal year 25, also ensuring effective service delivery while managing costs. Despite these financial pressures, the office continues implementing cost-saving measures while enhancing operations. An example of this is the recent outsourcing of detention center food services, which saved the county $325,000 in its first year. The Sheriff's Office has also proactively secured external funding, reducing reliance on taxpayer dollars. Inmate housing reimbursements have generated $2.8 million for the county, while fees for services such as paper service have contributed $446,000. Through these strategic efforts, the Sheriff's Office upholds public safety while maximizing efficiency and minimizing costs for Sweetwater County taxpayers. And while it can be argued that there's always room for more, eventually you have to ask yourself, when is it too much? Is it ever enough? And is there ever a breaking point? Is it when services are reduced or eliminated, when we can't keep up with maintenance on county roads, county parks, like the shooting range and archery range that we heard extensively about last summer, when we can no longer offer incentives to the hardworking employees of the county, when we cannot guarantee public safety services to protect the community, There are certain functions that can only exist by way in which they were designed. Yes, taxes. We all pay them and we all hate them, but that's how government operates. It would look much different if nothing had been done over the last several years, but clearly you can see that's not been the case. It's easy to say government should tax less, spend less, and reduce their payroll, but when is it ever going to be enough? Wyoming ranks one of the lowest states in the nation in terms of taxation. We have no state income tax, and the voters choose whether they want to support a 1 cent specific purpose tax initiative as they're brought forth. Everyone would love to see a break on their personal property tax, and perhaps rightfully so, but the proposed cuts at the state level don't offer long-term solution planning. What will be the next approach when these bills sunset and people are back to paying 50% more from what they'll be used to in 2 years? The state coffers, which Sweetwater County heavily contributes to, is a top 5 revenue generator for the state, are a lot healthier than local governments. Providing assistance by backfilling even a portion of these bills would be a more respectable move by our state lawmakers while maintaining local control and keeping communities whole. We may not agree with the direction the state legislature appears to be taking and will continue to express our opposition to bills that affect the county's future operations, but we will figure it out. Just understand there's a good chance many of the services the public has grown accustomed to will likely look much different. It's probable that future projects to advance and improve the county will be put on hold and will fall even further behind on deferred maintenance needs, costing the taxpayers more in the end. Change is on the horizon. That is inevitable. Let's hope that change comes out better than it appears presently as the session in Cheyenne concludes. And I will end my soapbox with that and stand for any questions.
Amen.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I
Richards.
just wanted to backtrack and reiterate comments you made about audit. A lot of the feedback that I'm seeing is that local government needs to submit to line by line audits. We do. Every year, 2 weeks ago, we paid the voucher $89,000 for our audit and sat here and spent 30, 40 minutes with the auditor as she went through our audit book page by page and explained how good we're doing. But the money we say is going places is actually going those places. And that's what an audit tells you. Does it tell us, are we spending money on the right things? No, that's the constituents' job to tell us if we're spending money on the right things. And I have to say how much I appreciate Laura coming and talking to us, because I go on the radio every month and beg people to come tell us what their issues are. But I get 2 kinds of calls. One of them is lower my property taxes, but for every one of those, I get 10 that say, plow my roads or fix the potholes in them. That's what most of my constituents are interested in, is us taking care of the services that they expect from us. So that's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate them.
Thanks, Commissioner. I believe that concludes the commissioner comments portion of the agenda. Appreciate everyone's reports. That's going to move us right along into tab C, which is the action and presentation items. But first, we're going to take a break. Our next item is a quarterly ambulance update from Castle Rock Hospital District, which is slated for 10:10. So try and start a little early if they're here. So let's take about a 10, maybe 15-minute break. Okay, we will call this meeting back to order. We are back from break. We left off under tab C, headed into item number 2, which is a quarterly ambulance update. And looks like we've got staff and board members here from Castle Rock Hospital District. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning. We'll start off. We sent you our numbers for the past quarter. Added a little bit more to the report as far as the total runs by month and exactly what those runs are. Just so you're aware, the SNF is skilled nursing facility. So that's patients that we're taking from the hospital to the nursing homes. Also started including our cardiac arrests and just a little bit more information for you to be able to see that. And we also present these same numbers to our board. As you can see, December was a very busy month at 463 runs. Prior to that, as you can see, a lot of it was in the lower 400s. We're continuing to see those high numbers through January and now into February as well. Staffing, I know, has been a question that we've been asked in the past due to our overtime. We've continued to have the issues with the advanced life support staff. We did have another one of those staff members leave us. However, we do have 3 that just finished their class, got their licenses for the intermediate EMT. And so they're doing their training right now. And so by March, we'll be able to have those spots filled. So we're super excited about that and being able to cut back on the overtime and hopefully not burn out our staff. The financials, is Todd coming? Okay, Todd will be here in a minute, so I'll leave that to him. Do you have any questions on anything that I have presented at this point?
Commissioners,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Kim, I think I asked this before, but it probably got lost in the mix. Is there any way we can break out Rock Springs, break out North Rock Springs from Rock Springs in the call reports?
We're working on that.
Because I'd really like to see what's going to municipals versus
Okay.
what's going to
Okay.
areas that were.
We're working on changing it up in Waters is our system that we document in and where we pull our reports from. We're working on a way to be able to do that. We just haven't figured it out yet, but it is something that we're working on. We've been working on it the last couple of weeks to be able to do that.
Appreciate
So
that.
hopefully by the next one, we'll be able to have that information
Thank
for
you.
you. Mhm. Yep.
Commissioner Jones.
Mr. Chairman, just a question on the increase in the runs, especially since it goes to December and January. Any reason that you know of for that? Because the weather's been pretty mild winter, so it's not weather, but it's just curious why. they
You
would
know,
change so
it's
much.
been all over the place with the types of calls that we're getting. So that's really not easy to pinpoint what specifically is causing that. So it's definitely been really interesting, like I said, to see the huge increase. As you can see, you know, we definitely are going on more patients that are requiring transport to the hospital with the increase in number that we have there. Yeah, I really don't have a specific answer for that. And then a couple other questions. I apologize. We just received an email with some questions. Questions have been asked about ambulances not always being available for transports to Utah. There's typically 3 reasons that we're unable to transport patients. One, we're already on one transport. We can't do multiple at the same time. The other one is weather. If the roads are bad between here and Utah, especially the Sisters, as we know, that gets bad. We don't risk our staff or the patient in taking those. The other typical thing that we have is if they are out of our scope or we don't have the resources. So one of the big ones with that, we've been asked to take neonatal patients, which are usually under 30 days. Those require specific monitoring and we don't have the equipment to take them. Usually a neonatal team comes in where they're in an isolate and all of that stuff. We won't take those. The other, or anyone that has a condition which may link to a decline in respiratory issues to where they may need to be intubated. Our staff can intubate. However, we don't have or carry the medications to sedate and paralyze. And so the patient would have to be completely unresponsive or excessively critical in order for us to be able to do that. And so those are the big reasons. We did get one call for a transport to Cheyenne. that one we will work on. We have been asked to do the Denver ones. Some of those are too far for us to go as far as time period. How long it takes, the turnaround time to Utah is about 7 hours, 6.5 to 7 hours. When we go to Casper, it's about 8 to 8.5 hours. So anything further than that, you're looking at a lot of time where if we can't get a backup crew, that's leaving the community without the 3 911s that we obviously with our call volume really do need. We are looking at bringing on a 4th ambulance staffed during our busiest times. Hopefully that will be done in the next couple months just to be able to ensure that we can do the transports, the rides to the airport, if I can talk, because those patients we do transport out there as well. So that's where we're at with that. Any questions on those?
Thanks, Kim. That was actually going to be my question because I just received information that a gentleman was up there and
Yeah,
had to drive himself. What is your ground IFT? Is that
that's your
That's the
interfacility
transfer.
transports.
Okay.
Yep. So those are the ones down to Utah.
okay?
If you guys do get people that are contacting you about that, if you could have them reach out to me so I know the specifics on what they're talking about so that I can look and see, what was going on at the time. Usually I'm pretty familiar when we're not taking patients. But just so that I can, dig in deeper and find out what's going on. If this was an ER patient, oftentimes if we're transporting someone from med-surg or ICU, the ER won't know that we're already on one. And so it would be nice to be able to,
I think that might be some of the disconnect. And I'm happy to get you in touch with the individual.
okay,
It was an ED patient, and
okay,
but even the staff that was working in the emergency department seemed to
yeah.
make the generalization that
Mhm.
an ambulance is never available. So I know there's still some of that going on, but
Yeah,
nonetheless, it's something that was brought to.
yeah. No, I would be happy to hear from them and be able to work it out to find out what happened and be able to resolve that for the next time. We can't make up for the past, but we can look
Sure.
at it for the future.
What does that look like? You guys are you staffing 3
Mhm.
pretty much full time? So
Yep.
if one goes on transfer, then you're just
Yeah, we do
down to
have
the 2,
an on-call shift available that people can sign up for, and we'll bring in those on-call people to backfill. Sometimes we have that full, other times we don't. A lot of times I'll come in or I'll get a hold of people, if we end up getting busy during those times. So that's why we're looking at the 4th truck, at least during the busy times of our day.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, commissioners?
What does standby mean? What does that mean?
Standby, that is when we're called to fire calls.
Oh,
And so we get called to fire alarms, all of that's kind of things where we just are there for fire in case they need us. And so we do get quite a few of those. Or if there's a house on fire or anything involving them, where the main reason that they're needed is fire department and not us.
dealing with the tunnel, was that challenging?
I have to be honest, I was working the ambulance in Green River that day when the call came in. I was actually in Rock Springs with a patient. Our staff honestly did a phenomenal job of responding to that. We were able to get enough staff in to staff 5 ambulances during that time. Rock Springs Fire and I have been able to work out where if all of our ambulances are busy, they will bring their ambulances and either respond to 911s or wherever we need them. So during that time, they were helping to cover 911 calls. We actually were able to transport patients very quickly and get them taken care of. We ended up transporting a total of 14 patients. We did assess 18 patients on scene, 2 refused, and then of course the 2 were unfortunate fatalities in the situation. Most of the people that we transported had smoke inhalation and of course some very serious injuries. The devastation that was up there was shocking. However, I will tell you that the people in the community were fabulous. Even the patients that I transported, they're like, please go help someone else. I'm okay. I'm okay. But it was at the point where they were the next ones to go and stuff. And so I think there were a lot of people that were involved in that didn't even come and talk to us because they felt like they were okay and didn't want to take the resources. So yeah, it was very challenging, but our staff, like I said, I felt did a really good job. The emergency room had things set up really, really well where we were able to get patients to them and then take off right away and go back to the scene. And for a bad situation, I felt like things went really well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
Kim, will you please accept and pass on our appreciation to you and your staff and the work you do on our, we talk numbers up here, but it's not numbers, it's people and.
It is.
And your people are great.
It is. Thank you. Yeah, our staff the last couple weeks, it didn't make the media, but we did have a multi-vehicle accident the previous Friday out east of Rock Springs, in which we had all three ambulances respond out there, and we brought in more staff in those emergency situations. Some very traumatic things that have happened here within our community prior to that. And so our staff has been hit pretty hard with the various things that they've been dealing with, and the community has. But our staff is resilient. They are just amazing. The amount of people that showed up, we had people that from out of town that were not planning on coming to work that day because roads were closed, and they showed up. They came to support each other and to help the community. And it just really, our staff has just been phenomenal. So thank you.
I think that's it so far.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kim. The money man. Morning, Todd.
Hey, that's me. Good morning. Yeah, we're happy to report that halfway through the year, the financials through December 31st, halfway through our fiscal year, we're about where we expected. In fact, we're a little bit better than we expected. Our bottom line, our net operating income right now is $46,000 through 6 months. If you subtract the Sweetwater County support, which is totaled just over $753,000, right now that would be a loss of around $700,000 operating loss. So that puts us on pace for about a $1.4 million operating loss for the full year, which is substantially less than the $1.8 million max subsidized loss that we have in the contract. So we're on pace to reduce our subsidy next year by about $400,000, which is larger than the reduction that we took this year, which was a little over $350,000. So we continue to trend in the right direction financially, despite having some areas that we continue to work on and need to improve. Our wages are over budget, and that's all due to overtime. We're a little bit busier than expected, and that's what has helped us more than anything. Our 911 revenue is above budget. And we want to be able to take as many of those interfacility transfers as we can, because those are the ambulance runs that are actually profitable. If you only did that, no subsidy would be needed. But it's the 911 calls where we end up losing. But we want more volume. I mean, more volume on a financial basis is better for us. So I'll take any questions that you have, but everything looks okay right now.
Commissioners? What do you see in kind of the trend on the 911 calls, Todd? Is it, year over year since you guys kind of took this over, reimbursements still an issue, or, write-offs? How's that kind of trending?
Yeah, reimbursements haven't changed. Their reimbursement, we struggle with that. Rural ambulances across the state and across the country continue to struggle. We're in the middle of a study right now with CMS, with Medicare, where we're providing a lot of data to them. And I think most, if not all of ambulance entities across the state are participating in this. And it's a big study, so they can look at reimbursement rates, and hopefully we can see an increase in Medicare reimbursement rates, because by far the largest insurer for us for ambulances is Medicare, just because of that patient population. But nothing's changed right now, but we're hopeful that based on the results of this study, that we'll see some increases in the Medicare ambulance reimbursement rate.
Very good. Well, it sounds like things are trending in a positive direction.
Yeah.
So we'll hope
Yeah, they
that remains, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you, commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. They're so much taller than me. I just wanted to update you briefly on our progress that we're making with the construction of a new ambulance building in Rock Springs. I think we mentioned last time that we had purchased some land on Gateway Boulevard to relocate to. And we are making slow progress. We're in the middle of designing the new facility, and we have chosen a contractor. Their contractor is Big D Construction. Of course, they'll work with subs. They're our general contractor. We're excited that we were able to attract a contractor that has the experience that they have. They've designed some similar ambulance buildings around us and down in Utah. So we will be moving forward this spring with more design. We're kind of in preliminary phase right now as far as cost and layout of the facility, access to Gateway, our surroundings and the people that, we've had a few calls about, lights and sirens and what that's going to do to the surrounding businesses. But for the most part, we're just in a very preliminary stage. I would anticipate the next quarterly meeting that we have with you will have final design, final cost, and be able to give you a lot more information on that. But we're, at this point, hoping to be able to accommodate all of the staff that work 24/7 in there with sleeping quarters. Currently, we have designed 6 bedrooms and then a conference room that would accommodate some more training. Currently, we go to the county fire department to have our department meetings. And if we teach CPR, it's here in Green River. There are some other facilities, the fire departments and stuff teach CPR in Rock Springs, but we also would like to be able to help with that in the future. And then accommodating our own EMT classes and paramedic classes and those kinds of things as well. So those are just some of our goals with the new facility, is being able to keep people 24/7 and then also have some classroom access for our staff to be able to do continuous training, and an office for Kim and our office manager. They're currently kind of tucked away in corners of the building that we're in now. So we're excited about that. And I hope to have a lot more information for you in the next meeting. But do you have any questions about that?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, that's all
Thanks
I
very
have.
much. Appreciate
Thank
you all
you.
coming over and keeping us apprised as to all the good things happening. So
Thank you.
kudos to your work last Friday too. I know that's probably an everyday thing, but certainly the community recognized that. So
Good.
thanks again.
Thank you for your time.
Next, under tab C, is an update on the 2024 year in review from the Sweetwater Events Complex. And with us this morning, excuse me, is Executive Director Candy Pendleton. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Chairman West and Commission. I appreciate your time. Things have been a little heavy this morning, so we're gonna switch that up a little bit, and I'm gonna give you some good news about the last calendar year. So I've had a couple of questions about why we report in February, since we run fiscal year, and because July is hell, frankly. And we don't have a lot of time to come visit with you in July and August with things going on at the complex. So this seemed to work well as far as the review goes. And then obviously we come a couple of different times. So this is a recap of the 2024 calendar year. If you would keep that in mind as we roll through here. And I tend to speak quickly and roll quickly. So if you have some questions, please feel free to interrupt me. So first, I want to say a big thank you. I recognized the last week or two, and I think Commissioner Jones mentioned it in his comments, that we've been a little bit divided as a community here recently, and things like what have happened recently seem to bring us all back together. And we really are a strong community, and we have lots of community support. And we forget that sometimes. We get caught up in the negative, and I think that's easy to do. And I just feel like that's not normally how we are. So I really want to thank Sweetwater County. I want to thank all of you for your support. We just finished having Commissioner Richards as our liaison for the last couple of years. He was fantastic to work with. Big thanks. I don't think he missed a meeting along the way. So Commissioner West, you have big shoes to fill on the liaison side of things, but we're looking forward to working with you.
All downhill from here.
Right. I know you guys have lots of meetings that you attend, and so we try to make them meaningful and give you the information that you need. So every time I come, I talk about our mission and our vision. Our mission is to provide quality year-round recreational facilities and services which enhance the quality of life and economic opportunities for the residents, businesses, and visitors at Sweetwater County. We're going to spend a lot of time today on the economic impacts of the events complex and what we do to try to help make our community strong. And I hope you'll see that impact in here. Our vision is to ensure a vibrant, well-maintained facility that offers space for social interaction, embracing change, celebrating people, and enjoying life. And again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but guiding principles, we try to make sure that everything we do is for public benefit. There's always a balance between bringing in national and regional events and having public space for our community members. That's something we take very seriously. So public benefit's a big deal for us. Trying to make our facility as nice as it can be. As you guys know, that facility was built in 1976. There have been lots of improvements along the way, but there are also still lots of things that are from 1976. So we're doing our best to keep those facilities up to date as much as we can. We try to support local. We do as much shopping local. We obviously hire local. Our contractors are typically local, support local as much as we can. We highlight Sweetwater County in a big way when we go and visit with people, when we're recruiting, when we're bringing in events. We talk about all the wonderful things that we have here. People often don't recognize the high desert for what it is and the great activities we have here. And so we spend a lot of time doing that, both locally and with people that we reach out to. When you're on the grounds, we want you to have the best time that you can possibly have. Most of our events are fun and people are out there to have a great time. We do host some more somber events and we try to make those good as well, but we just want people to come out and not have to be stressed out when they're out there. And then being, sustainable. What can we do to make sure the events complex is here for the next 30 years? So real quick, and my disclaimer is I always steal these photos from Facebook. So please know these are not professional photos that are done because we don't have that in our budget and we don't spend money on that sort of stuff. But our Fair Board, our new chairman who was elected this year is Janet Hartford. The 2024 Bob Spicer was our chairman, if you remember, but Janet's the new chairman. Rob Zadi is our vice chairman. Tommy Tillman is our secretary treasurer. Coral Healer, Mark Lyon, Chris Meets is our newest member. He's been to one meeting, so he's our newest Fair Board member. And then of course, Bob Spicer. So those are the 7 board members that are appointed by you. We also have a liaison from Daggett County, and that's Donald Pallison. And I just heard Castle Rock talk about their staff and how fantastic they are. And I know we're all biased, but this is our dream team right here. This is our full-time staff. We do have one part-time person in that photo that's staying with us part-time over the winter, but that is the full-time staff that we have at the events complex. And they are a very hardworking, dedicated bunch. We work at least 6 days a week in the summertime, sometimes 7 days a week in the summertime with long hours, and they do it without a lot of complaint. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw some names and faces, and they're just great people. Okay, so here's the good stuff. I did this at the board meeting and had to warn everybody. So a look back, 2022, our economic impact, what people spent in Sweetwater County was just under $16 million. We're obviously thrilled with all of those numbers. So 16 million in 2022. 2023, we're at about $18.5 million, which again, steady increase is what you're going for. I'm going to show you the 2024 numbers and warn you that I don't think we can stay there, but we're going to be there for at least a couple of years with National High School, and it's super impressive, and I hope you guys agree. But 2024, our economic impact was over $30 million. And that is obviously thanks to National High School Finals Rodeo. That is a huge contributor to people coming in and spending money here, and we do have that for one more year. And then we're going to do our best to keep recruiting and get that number up there, but National High School is a hard one to compete with. So a little over $30 million in economic impact. Those are people coming into our county from outside of our county and our locals that are spending money here, spending tax dollars here, helping local businesses. So here's how that breakdowns and why I give you the little warning at the beginning, but National High School Finals Rodeo was $11 million of that 30 million. And they set records in everything that they did last year. Their participants were up, their spectators were up, their scholarship numbers. I think we'll see that again for 2025. So we might see that number grow even a little bit more for this coming summer. But $11 million for the high school finals. Wyoming's Big Show brings in about $4 million. Horse racing numbers, that one's a little bit weird to put on here, but I always want to call it out. The horse racing dollars are the numbers that are actually given back to City of Rock Springs, City of Green River, and Sweetwater County. So that 2.29 million is not spectators coming in. That's just the number that's coming back from historic horse racing revenues. And I believe horse racing themselves are working on an economic impact study for the state. And when we get those numbers, we'll be happy to share those with you. Yearly operations bring in about 10.5 million. And then the Escapade Rally was just short of $1 million. And we all know, you all know, again, preaching to the choir, but when those people are here, they're not sitting in their trailers, right? They're going to restaurants, they're going to have drinks, they're going to the rec center, they're going out to fish, they're doing all the things that we love. So return on investment last year, not counting our capital, we had 1.965 million in county allocation for our budget. With a $30 million economic impact for every dollar invested, we're getting $15.50 back into Sweetwater County. So really proud of that. We will continue to try to bring in these events that have this impact. I think is important for us. I think we all know what minerals do for Sweetwater County, but tourism is number 2 in the state. And I think, you know, we're seeing more and more of that in Sweetwater County as we start investing in that. Jackson, Cody, those places have always enjoyed tourism money. And I think we're just starting to break into that a little bit more. So I think we'll see that number expand. So some other quick numbers for you. In 2024, we had just short of 24,000 nights of RV camping in our campgrounds, 23,984 to be exact. We had 2,000 rental space stays. A couple of notes on that. That number was 1,300 last year. Partly because we had those couple big events this year, but partly because you all helped us purchase a new calendar program, which is doing a better job of tracking exactly what we have out there. So the 2,040 days is a very realistic number, and we will see that continue to grow. But that's pretty impactful. That tells you how many events we're having each day typically. So obviously summers are much busier than the winter, but even in the winter, there'll be days that we have 3 or 4 or 5 events going on at once. And then I just broke down those event days. The 2,040 dates are broke down by equestrian, livestock, gymkhana, rodeo, and clinics. That number is typically not our highest number, but because of high school rodeo and a couple other things that we had, our biggest impact this year was in the equestrian and livestock events. Banquet, celebrations, trade shows are at 8:30. Community service are the free dates that we host. Any 4-H activities, sheriff's training, school district bus training, all of those things are included in the community services number. And then wheeled sports, which is obviously mostly in the summertime. We do have a few events in the winter, but BMX, motocross, and stock cars. I always want to share with the public mostly that we are open. Our facility is typically open 24/7. We do have some blackout dates when we have like National High School going on. Obviously, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But for the most part, you can come out and enjoy our grounds anytime. We have a couple of ponds that have been stocked in recent years with Wyoming Game and Fish. We have met with them again this year, and they will be stocking the ponds for this coming summer as well. So the 2 ponds are available and you can fish. You just have to have a license. The Yellowstone Arena is almost always available to come and ride and enjoy your horses. We have monuments, 2 different dog parks, the Spicer Pavilion, picnic tables, lots of different things. So we have numerous people that come out and walk around the grounds, and just want everybody to know that it's an open public space. So if you want to come out and check out the beautiful flowers that we have or see what's going on out there, you're always welcome. So real quick, facility improvements from last year. I had mentioned to you, we bought some new booking software, which is called Event Pro. It's working really well for us. We appreciate your support getting that. We improved the drainage at our horse stalls, our motocross track, and our lower campground. We put electrical to our main stage for those of you that come out to the fair and see the concerts. In the past, we've always had to run those via generator, which makes your heart stop a little bit because, as you know, that's not perfect either. So this is the first year we actually had power available there, which was great. So we have power there. And again, that was one of our capital improvements last year. So electrical upgrades. We completed the grandstands race office and jockey's room. That was a joint effort between Sweetwater County and Wyoming Horse Racing. We've updated the grandstands restrooms and the grandstands kitchen and concession area. We installed the new indoor arena heater. Commissioner West was at our meeting and we talked about this, but we have they're just oil-filled heaters, right? We don't have HVAC in the indoor arena. It was built in 76, didn't have any sort of temperature control. So we use oil-filled heaters to keep heat in that building to at least take the chill off. And the new oil-filled heater we got is 30 years older or newer than the old one, but it doesn't like mornings. So we're having trouble getting it to start in the mornings for some reason, but I think they're working on that. Anytime before 8, it's just a little fickle. And then after that, it fires right up. So maybe Commissioner West can wear his other hat sometime and tell us why that's happening. But But it's been a great asset for us. It puts out a way more heat than the old one and is way more efficient. So that's good. We installed new roofs on our small buildings, as you're aware, and we made improvements to the small hall. And then, of course, lots of maintenance and improvements along the way. Fast fingers. So currently we're in the middle of a couple of other upgrades with the information on the indoor arena. We had to do some electrical upgrades. We're finishing those in the indoor arena. We had to order a switch gear that was 64 weeks out with our last project. So that is scheduled to be here in March or April. So we'll work on our primary loop of electrical on the grounds. We're adding some perimeter fencing on Yellowstone Road. We're Parimutuel Commission, who does the Wyoming horse racing, has some regulations as far as the barn areas go. And so they're requiring us to put in some fencing around the horse stalls. I think that'll be a win-win. First of all, Wyoming horse racing will pay for that fencing, so it won't come out of our county budget. Second part of that, though, is it will hopefully make access easier to our lower ponds. I know several of you commissioners received phone calls last year about people not being able to fish at the lower ponds, and that's because that's a perimeter for the horse stalls. So we're working on that issue. I hope it will be fixed. I'm not making any guarantees at this point, but we do know it's an issue and we're working on it. We're replacing some grass in our Boris Test Park area. The county has generously brought in some rotomill to put rotomill at the Speedway pits. Again, if you were out there for National High School Finals, there were a couple of days that were breezy. And with breeze comes dirt, and we have a lot of dirt out there. And so any rotomill we can get on the dirt, I think, is always a good thing. And then we're just doing regular, repair, refresh, update, rabbit cages and turkey cages and pens and panels for goats and sheep and those sorts of things. We spend a lot of time in the winter just fixing stuff up so that we can use it all summer long. And then asphalt is our next big issue. We're going to tackle some asphalt repairs here as soon as it warms up. Picture is of the new horse racing office that I mentioned that we built in collaboration with you all and Wyoming Horse Racing. It's a great asset. We had the governor there last year. We use it for our VIP area. I think that building will see some increased usage once we get some other things lined out, but it's a very nice asset that didn't cost the county much. And then you've been involved in our master planning process. So just an update on that. We have finalized the master plan. If you remember, we had 4 options that we initially looked at. We had stakeholders come in and have meetings with KO architects. And so we have finalized our final layout of what that master plan will look like. Next steps is he will give us building layouts, budget cost estimates, and then phasing. So he will sit down and say, okay, what's your first priority? How much money do you think you want to spend in round 1? How can we split this out? And then we'll get back together and have those conversations. Probably not the best conversation today in light of everything else happening with budgets, but we all know at some point there's going to have to be some improvements and maintenance out there. And we're excited to have this. We haven't had a master plan since the 80s. And so this at least gives us a direction to work towards. And the talented team of staff that we have can do a lot of these things on our own. We'll just start working through the process with the small buildings, and then the big stuff can come later. So coming this summer, we have a Tiffin coach rally. This is the one I've mentioned to you. They're calling it their Tiffin Mega Rally. They're hoping to have 1,000 coaches on grounds in June. They will be here for about 8 days total with pre and post rally information. Then of course, we'll invite them to stick around a little bit, but that will be a big rally for us. Those are all the big high dollar coaches, and they'll have some open days where people can come out and see what those are all about and visit. We'll have the National High School Finals Rodeo, probably for the last time. We've had this conversation before also, but it looks like they're looking to find places that have indoor facilities. We will stay in communication with them, and if something changes, we'll certainly throw our name back in the ring. But for now, it looks like they're looking to go somewhere with 4 indoor arenas, and it's just not feasible here. Red Desert Roundup Rodeo is obviously a summer staple. The Royal Crown event, Wyoming's Big Show, and horse racing for the summer. And then 2026, we have 1 rally confirmed. That's Newmar. They're also a motor coach rally. And then our regular events. We have sort of been holding on recruiting a little bit with the idea that we're going to need to help with some workforce housing issues for Project West and Pacific Soda, and maybe the nuclear plant coming up. So we're trying to hold a little bit so that we can be an asset to help get those big projects done in Sweetwater County. I don't know how long we do that and what the goal is moving forward, but we have sort of been in a holding pattern. And as we know more, I'll keep you posted, but it's hard to go out and recruit events with the idea that we may be having some workers there long-term, because you can't really ask them to move on to BLM property for 2 weeks while we have a big event. So we're trying to balance those things out. So as we know more about Pacific Soda and Project West and how they might use the campgrounds there at the facility, we'll keep you guys posted, but we're staying on everybody's radar. We make great relationships with these people. We spend a lot of time reaching out, going to visit, going to their rallies. They choose to come here because of the people here in Sweetwater County and the relationships they make, and we know that's important. So we're just going to keep our faces in front of them. And that's it in a nutshell. So any questions for me?
Questions, comments, commissioners? Commissioner Jones?
Mr. Chairman, Candy, I just want to thank you. I know I do it every time, but I really appreciate what all you guys do out there. It's pretty amazing to see what takes place and how few people you do it with is pretty impressive to me. So there's lots of work, and I know you guys work all summer. So the rest of us are enjoying summer, and you all are out there working 7 days a week. So just thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Commissioner Richards?
Candy, can you touch on the fees that you charge for the RV spaces? I know this information, but
Sure.
over the last couple of weeks have gotten some feedback that, they're competing with local businesses and that we're making bank on our RV spaces. Can you just give a little background on
Sure.
that and how you decide your rental fees?
Absolutely. First of all, we typically don't advertise for RV spaces, and we encourage people when they come through on a nightly basis to go to the local campgrounds. We have a list of all the local campgrounds. We hand that out on a regular basis. We're handing that out now to workers that are calling us to First Pack, KOA, and the desert campground that's right off of the interstate, and Little America even. So we're not trying to solicit and take those campground spaces from local people, first off. So most of our campground is event campground rental, and it really depends on the camper itself, but $45 a night is our normal rate. We do charge 6% sales tax and 7% lodging tax on top of that. So that is our nightly rate. For things like National High School and those events, we do have an event rate. So National High School, for instance, pays $325 for the week. So all of that revenue that's generated goes back into the general operating fund of the events complex and offsets our ask from you, right? So our normal budget this year, I think we are at $4.5 million is what our budget is. We ask for 1.9 from the commission. The rest of that money is coming from those revenues. So we're offsetting all of that. But we do we call around pretty frequently to find out what the local places are offering. We don't offer a weekly rate. We don't offer a monthly rate. We are just trying to attract events for the most part, but we're happy to help if we can to deal with the housing issues. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Well, thanks, Candy. She mentioned at their monthly board meeting, do you want me to come over? Do you guys like that annual review? I said, yeah, please do, because sometimes it's doom and gloom in here, and it's nice to have a change of pace and talk about successful, I guess, accomplishments that you guys continue to do with the events complex. So, excuse me, we appreciate that and for keeping us up to speed on everything. And we'll look forward to seeing what that master plan brings along and where we can help support that. So thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll be back for the budgets, but I will also be back as we get our Wyoming's Big Show entertainment confirmed and give you guys an update on that. So
very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Candy. That's going to move us to item number 4, which is the Sweetwater Combined Communications 2024 Annual Report. With us this morning is IT Director David Halter. Good morning, David.
Morning. How are you guys?
Doing well.
While I get set up, I'm got more numbers for you guys to ponder over. Hopefully not too much doom and gloom. So anyway, David Halter, I'm the IT Director at the Sweetwater Combined Communications Center. At the moment, I'm also the Interim Executive Director. Hopefully we'll have that position filled within the next 4 weeks or so. But other than that, I want to present our 2024 annual report. Just going to go over some of the key statistics and then some projects that we got coming up, and then answer any questions. So with 911 calls in 2024, we're back down to a kind of a normal level. We're down to 14,813 911 calls coming into our center. Last year, we had 17,668. That peak is a result of a lot of cell phone tower upgrades in the area. And when they do that, they also test our 911 system. So they literally drive around every tower that they do maintenance or do upgrades to and test 911. So we had a lot of those that year. In 2024, 90.64% of the calls coming in were from wireless, so cell phones. That's fairly standard. Phase 1, phase 2 location. Oh yeah, you can see that. What that means is when we get location of the cell phone or the caller coming in on 911, phase 1 is usually just the tower location. Phase 2 is the caller's location based on triangulation of those cell phone towers. Since we're such a rural area, sometimes you don't get a good triangulation because those cell phone towers are so spread apart. Again, with those upgrades from the phone carriers, as you can see, 90.68% of those calls were getting much better location on phase 2. Rapid SOS location is kind of a new thing in the past, well, 6 years at this point. As you can see, that's increased dramatically. And what that is that's the actual GPS location sent from the phone itself. And that's all in the more modern smartphones. Pretty much if you buy a phone today, it's going to have this feature. So when you call 911, your device will send its location to Rapid SOS, and our dispatch center pulls that location from Rapid. And 81.96% of those wireless calls, we got that location. So when you call 911, there's a much better chance that we know where you're at now. So it's been improving over the last few years. We do accept text to 911, so you can text conversations to 911. We get your location through that just as if we do a voice call. Last year, we only had 68 of those. It does come in handy for people that don't have very good cell phone coverage where they're at, but they can get a text message out. And especially with the ability to text our center over satellite now, that's coming. And we've gotten a few of those. It's really helped locate people. We had somebody stuck on Highway 530 down by Manila that didn't have cell phone service, but they were able to get a text out via satellite to us. So and we're able to get them out of there. Our inbound admin calls, so these are the non-emergent calls coming into our center. It's been flat roughly. We're at 49,052 calls. Outbound admin calls are low, or roughly the same, but lower than last year, 22,050 calls. So those are calls that we make out of the center and transfer out of the center. So sometimes we'll get calls along I-80. We get a lot of those calls and we have to transfer those to Highway Patrol. And then in 2024, we transferred 4,266 of those calls to Highway Patrol, which brings our total calls to 85,915 calls, and we're down about 9% from last year, but still an increase from 2022. Calls for service. So what we just looked at was the phone calls that we make and receive in the center. Calls for service are actual calls that we enter into our system. And with that, I won't give you everybody, but the sheriff's office had 24,680 calls, which accounts for 31.62% of our call volume. Radio usage, I won't go too far into the weeds on this, but this just tracks our push to talks, which says every time someone keys up the radio and then how many minutes they're on the air. We are switching the way we do business in the dispatch center. So we're using some different radio channels. So things are going to look a little messy on this report over the next few years, but we are switching to 04 LE1, 2, and 3, which will help us be a little bit more efficient in the communication center. So I'm going to zoom out of this just a little bit so you can see all three graphs. So we do something called voiceless dispatch. We will put the call in our system but depending on the urgency of the call, if it's not an urgent call, we just put the call in the system, and then the officers out in the field can see it on their screens, and then they can take it from there on their own. So what we're encouraging the officers to do is be able to self-dispatch themselves to these calls and type the notes in and everything. So it minimizes phone calls and radio calls into our center. So it leaves our staff more available to 911 and being able to take care of the more urgent calls. As you can see, our MDT usage is sort of trending up a little bit, but our admin calls and our radio usage is down. So it's kind of an inverse, and that's what we like to see. Call taking protocols. These are the protocols that our dispatchers go through when someone calls 911 or even a non-emergent. These protocols allow us to ask very repeatable questions. So we're asking the same questions of everybody that calls into our center so that we have the right information and more accurate information for our first responders. This is just tracking those types of calls from left to right, essentially. Omega is the lowest priority and Echo are the highest priority. So Delta and Echoes are like your cardiac arrests, active shooters, things like that. So on the Delta and Echo calls, a lot of the time there's maybe one question or two questions, and then we dispatch resources immediately and then continue follow-up questions. Whereas your Alpha and Bravo and Charlie calls, there's a lot more questions that we ask before we dispatch those resources. These are just our active users in our RMS and CAD system by agency. Just shows you the numbers there. At the bottom, as you can see, Sweetwater County has a majority of our users. A lot of that is just because we also host the jails software keeping system, so the jail management. So the county has 38.67% of the users in our system. Smart 911. Does everyone here have a Smart 911 safety profile? No? I would recommend you get one, smart911.com, or you can get the Smart 911 app. What that does is allows you to put in as little or as much information as you want about you and your family, whether you have medical conditions, your house floor plan, pets, where your utility shutoffs are, anything that you think first responders would like to know when you dial 911. And how that works is when you call 911 from one of the phone numbers that you put into this system, it will also display that information up for our dispatchers. This information cannot be searched by our communicators at the center, but when you do call 911, if you have a safety profile, it will also pop up. Another thing we're trying to push is we also do facility profiles. And what that is very similar to a safety profile for people, but it's for facilities. So let's say the county had a facility profile for all of the buildings where there was utility shutoffs, hazards, things like that, floor plans with room numbers. That would be very beneficial. If anyone calls 911 from within the facility, either from the facility's phone numbers or just their location, that profile would also pop up on our screens. So it can give us additional detail of resources and things that we could provide to those facilities. And then just some other statistics that I won't bore you to death with. But at this point, does anyone have any questions about the stats?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Just going to go over really quick. These are just a list of the services we provide to the agencies and to the public. A lot of it I've already gone over. Completed projects in 2024, we've upgraded a server. We're going to be upgrading 3 more this year. A lot of the reason why we're doing 3 right now is in order to go to the next version of our virtual environment. The servers that we're currently running are no longer supported, so we have to move to the next version. I'm sure you've heard this from your own IT departments. There's things where we have to do upgrades in order to stay up with the cybersecurity threats that are out there, and this is one of them. Consulate replacement. We did replace 8 of our consulate radios, so they're fixed radios that we have in. We have 4 of them in our primary center and 4 in Rock Springs. We were able to purchase those with YDOT's grant money a couple years ago, and they were installed last year. Our microwave system replacement back in 2014, we installed a microwave system. So we have fiber optic between our backup center and our primary center. In 2014, we also installed wireless connectivity between the centers. So we have microwave paths between the cities. The company that manufactured those radios went out of business about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're now in the process of replacing each of those links so that we have a supported system on that. And we also implemented multi-factor authentication. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that. It's basically in addition to your username and password, you have to provide something. So it's one thing is what you know and one thing is what you have. So what you know is your password. What you have is a token that generates a code is what essentially comes down to. To meet federal FBI security requirements, we have to implement that on all our systems. And that also goes with law enforcement as well. Upcoming projects this fiscal year are the server upgrades, like I'd mentioned. We have to replace a few UPS systems, replace a firewall at the Justice Center. We do have a firewall at the Justice Center that allows the Sheriff's Office to connect to our network, and we got to get that replaced. And then we're also hoping to upgrade the ability. There's a repeater at the Farson Fire Department that we would like to essentially wireline control. So basically what it is right now, we use another radio up on Wilkins Peak to talk to the radio in Farson. When we do that, the audio quality degrades. Plus, we also have to be able to listen to that radio all the time. With this, we'll be able to directly control that radio through wireline. So basically the internet, and audio quality will be better, and it also frees up resource for us. And then on page 15 down, I'm not going to bore you to death with all that, but that's just all the projects that we're looking at moving forward. One project that I really want to get done at some point is a mobile repeater trailer. That could have helped us a lot in the tunnel situation last Friday. As you can imagine, radio coverage inside the tunnels isn't the best, but that would have been a good resource to have. We have applied for impact assistance money on a couple projects in the past, and this was specific. This was the specific project we had asked for. So hopefully we can get that done soon. But other than that, I'll stand for any questions at this point.
Questions, comments, commissioners? Thanks for the data, David, and coming over and keeping us informed.
No problem.
A lot of that I wasn't aware of. It's interesting to see where some of those statistics are coming from. I also want to commend, I think, your dispatchers are the unsung heroes in a lot of situations. And I know, especially with tragic events like we faced last Friday, they play a very pivotal role in the outcomes of those. So if you could express our appreciation for everything they do. And
I will.
It certainly doesn't go unnoticed. It should be celebrated more, but
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
any other comments, commissioners?
All right.
Well, it sounds like we need to familiarize ourselves with Smart 911 statistics a little more, but you also piqued my interest. I mean, from a commercial standpoint, are you seeing like businesses sign up with that?
Yeah, I don't know if I had the numbers on there. I think I did. Yeah, so we have 103 facility profiles right now. A lot of the ones that we are getting, they just put in a phone number for like an after hours contact. We would like to see more information, especially with some of the larger facilities. I would love to see the county participate. I have presented this to Sweetwater County, and it would be nice, especially for like your elevators and things like that. If someone calls from an elevator, a lot of the time we don't know it's from an elevator right away. If that elevator's phone number was in there, we would know exactly where that call was coming from, and that would help with the facility profile. So hazards, utility shutoffs, gate codes, where your Knox box is located, things like that. Any of that information would be helpful. So
interesting. The crazy technology, man. I commend you for keeping up with it. It's never ending and certainly important, but Sweetwater County has a lot of facilities. So that's an interesting take on that.
Yeah, I just, in the 12 years I've been at the center, there's been huge changes, and with inflation and just the general cost of public safety in general, just going up like crazy. And then you have cybersecurity on top of that. And then FBI security mandates, which constantly change. We just got the new version 6 a couple weeks ago. So I got to go through that and see what other unfunded mandates they have for us to look forward to. So I do appreciate the support on that, and we'll try our best. So
Very good. And good luck with your new director search, and keep up the good work in the meantime.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's going to move us to item number 5, commissioners, which is another break.
Skip it.
We need a quick 5-minute break. So we'll come back at 11:15. How's that?
I think I was the late one then.
Yeah, I still got a minute left. Yeah.
Thank you. Call the meeting back to order. We left off at item number 6, which is a combined communications joint powers board appointment due to the expiring term of Clark Allred. We have 2 applications on file, with one application for reappointment for Mr. Allred. Commissioners, I would ask what your pleasure is.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Richards.
I would move to reappoint Clark Allred to a term on the Joint Powers Communication Board. Clark has done a fantastic job and he's an asset there.
Very good. We do have a motion to reappoint Clark Allred to the Sweetwater County Combined Communication Joint Powers Board by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second that as liaison to that board.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Discussion on the appointment. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 7 is a Joint Powers Water Board appointment due to the expiring term of Hillary Huckfield. Hillary did reach out to me and stated that she had some other commitments and could no longer serve, but wanted to thank her for her time spent on that board. We've had 2 applications on file, and I would ask what your pleasure is.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
looking through the applications, I'm very familiar with Mr. Lee. I'm not familiar with the other one, but I did want to point out that Mr. Lee didn't mark that he wasn't willing to sign the conflict of interest disclosure. I don't even know if there is one. But I would assume that's an oversight. But if somebody nominates him, I would suggest that we make that appointment pending him agreeing to sign one if there is one.
Yeah, I think that was likely an oversight. I know Mr. Lee has served on this board in the past and various other boards, but we can certainly clarify that.
If that's okay with everybody, then I would move to appoint Terry Lee to the term on the Joint Powers Board pending his agreement to sign any necessary conflict of interest disclosures.
You have a motion to appoint Terry Lee to the Joint Powers Water Board by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion on the appointment. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 8, we have actually 2 board appointments for the Solid Waste Disposal District number 1 due to the expiring terms of Larissa Apel and Celeste Black, both of whom have reapplied, and we also have another application on file. Commissioners, I would ask what your pleasure is.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I would move to reappoint Celeste and Larissa. Both of them have been instrumental in turning around that board, and I'd like to see their work continue.
Yeah, very much so. We do have a motion to reappoint Larissa Apel and Celeste Black to the Solid Waste Disposal District number 1 board by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion on the appointments. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks to all those who are willing to serve. Item number 9 is a federal natural resources policy account grant request for the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan Amendment. I believe Danielle Betancourt helped us prepare this in regards to going after a FNRPA reimbursement for some of the legal fees that we've, I guess, obtained throughout the response and protest period for the Rock Springs RMP. The governor's office has a line item for FNRPA, and we are going after that to try and reimburse some of our expenses. So that is the purpose of the request. And we'll open it up for any other additional discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
well, the governor's office had told us that we could apply for the money after the fact because it was for the RMP. So I feel it's time that we sought these funds, and I'd be willing to make that motion.
We do have a motion to approve the Federal Natural Resources Policy account grant request for the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan Amendment as presented by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item number 10 is the approval of a letter to the BLM regarding the Secretary's order for a plan for identification and use of authorities and a plan to review and revise the Rock Springs RMP for deregulation. And with us today is Land Use Director Eric Bingham again, as well as Chief Deputy County Attorney John De Leon. Hand it over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have prepared a letter for the Board of County Commissioners. We did send a letter out last week. Commissioner Jones did sign that letter. We were under some time constraints, so that's appreciate Commissioner Jones for reaching out, signing that letter so we could get it out to the Bureau of Land Management. The letter has been addressed to the field manager. This is in response to the exciting news of an executive order by President Trump 14156, which was declaring a national energy emergency, and through another executive order unleashing American energy. And then there's been a lot of executive orders, but another one unleashing prosperity through deregulation. So based on those executive orders that went out, there's a new Department of Interior, Secretary Burgum signed secretary orders to implement some of those executive orders with the Department of Interior. As you know, part of the Department of Interior is the Bureau of Land Management. One specifically that I want to talk about is Secretarial Order 3418, which is in the letter, which brings up the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan and orders implementation, removal of impediments on the development. So as you kind of the nickname drill baby drill, as you've heard, that through these executive orders that the regulatory barriers are reduced. And so, as you know, that's been our biggest issues with the resource management plan is some of those development barriers, which through special designations, through right-of-way exclusion areas and avoidance areas that we've had concerns of, some of the trail corridors and those arbitrary and capricious distances that were established in that document. So this reopens it. It requires from the Department of Interior, Secretary Burgum, for the Bureau of Land Management to come up with a plan to look at the resource management plan and potentially go in there and make changes to that. Alternative C, for the most part, does, when we were going through the resource management plan, you had the 4 alternatives, was a more resource friendly alternative. I would say most of it is. There are still some areas in that alternative that are more restrictive than the current resource management plan. So when we go through that process, which is what I'm going to discuss here also, I did bring up in the letter With our protests, the biggest issues that we had through there, I won't go through those. I've gone through them before publicly, everything. And the big thing is the special designations and the lack of monitoring and inconsistencies with right-of-way designations, take for example, and the inadequate response to comments. I spoke in January about the protest and a lot of these areas that we brought up that were not, there was no response to. Also with the National Historic Trail Management Corridor. So where does this leave us at right now? So Bureau of Land Management is coming up with a plan that they'll get back with Secretary Burgum to get back with. There's some things that they can look at possibly doing through the NEPA process. One is what's called a Resource Management Plan Amendment. That actually happened with sage grouse when President Trump got in office in 2016. They revisited it through a Resource Management Plan Amendment. So that's one method. Now with a Resource Management Plan Amendment, that process goes a lot faster. It's usually done with an environmental assessment, which compared to an environmental impact statement, which can take years, this can go a lot faster. As far as an exact time frame, I couldn't tell you, but it is a faster process. Another process could be a potential revision. And that a revision would require environmental impact statement and would affect the entire document. Usually with a plan amendment, it addresses specific areas of the plan, where a revision is the entire resource management plan. That's why it requires more environmental studies. So with it, just like with the sage grouse, that was a resource management plan amendment. That was one aspect of it that was pulled out. Same thing with the wild horses. That was a resource management plan amendment where it was a specific area. Where they are going to look at, we don't know yet. I have spoken with the Wyoming State BLM Director, Andrew Archuleta, who did state that he would come here in March and discuss their plans moving forward. Another thing that Deputy Civil County Attorney John DeLeon, if I've got that right, Chief Deputy County Attorney, another process could have potentially been through litigation, through what's called a stipulated agreement. Thank you. That was another potential process too. There are drawbacks to that. But ultimately, you're going to end up with a resource management plan amendment, whichever direction you go in at this moment. So, and thank you, John and I did reach out to Danielle Bentoncourt on Friday, got her legal advice on that information too. So that's the purpose of this letter, is just to acknowledge to our local field manager that we understand the process, and we would like to be a part of that process as a cooperator, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm asking for, one other thing compared to the letter that went out, we did add another paragraph in there just stating that that we didn't have that revision language in there. So we did add that into this letter compared to the letter that Commissioner Jones signed last week. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what I have. As far as me, I do appreciate BLM Director Andrew Archuleta reaching out to me when this letter did go out and getting the ball rolling on a meeting with him. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Open for questions.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the explanation there. I think that helps clarify some of the different, potential options moving forward. And thanks to Commissioner Jones for covering while I was out to sea there, so to speak. I came back and realized I was holding up all kinds of signatures. So thanks for doing what you had to do there. We certainly don't want to hold up the process, but I think it's very well written, and I look forward to continued conversations, hopefully for the better. Additional comments, questions on the letter, commissioners? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing to go along with this. I did kind of put together in a very abbreviated version of the task force that we went through, just to try and get some information from industry and their feelings on it. So I reached out to the Trona industry and oil and gas, did receive some written comment from them that I sent to Eric, and we included with our letters. And but As far as selecting an alternative, one of the two Trona comment letters followed alternative C. One was A, essentially. The Petroleum Association of Wyoming sent in two written letters, but they strongly support alternative C. So just kind of follow along, and it kind of backs up what Eric and John have put together and supports from the Trona, or excuse me, from the industry. So it's not just some guys writing letters, but this is real life.
Very good. Appreciate that. Additional comments, Commissioner Tillman?
Well, I'll just get with Eric so I can take him to DC if we do get a chance to meet with the BLM director, the new one.
And she would be a good choice. I'll just say that. Got a chance to meet her when I went and testified in, I think it was last March on the resource management plan, and that would be a good choice. Advocate for oil and gas.
Has this letter been sent, or can we send it to our congressional delegation and to Burgum and the new BLM director?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Toman, yes, we actually sent the original, that letter that what came from Commissioner Jones, went to all our federal delegation, including, yes. So yes, it will go to all of our federal delegation.
Thank you.
Additional comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the letter to the BLM regarding the Secretary's order for the plan for identification and use of authorities to review and revise the Rock Springs RMP for deregulation as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
I would be glad to second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Eric. And
Thank you, Mr.
John,
Chairman.
for jumping on that and
Yep,
putting it
you bet.
together.
Yep, thank you. Thanks,
And move us right along to item number 11. If I can keep my voice together here, which is the renewal of the BLM right-of-way for JY Road, County Road 88. And got our Director of Public Works, Gene Legursky, with us. Good morning, Gene.
Thank you, Chairman West, Commissioners. What you have before you is just a simple renewal for JY Road. It's hard to believe it wasn't, the right of way was granted over 30 years ago, but it wasn't built, for a long time. So it's finally built. It was built, but however, the grant needs to be updated. As with all of these in the past, I will try to get this to go indefinite instead of for a definite time frame of 30 years. We'll see what their mood is. It all depends on how they're feeling at the moment, whether we get an indefinite one or not. I don't feel any reason why we shouldn't try for an indefinite one. That way somebody 30 years down the road doesn't have to go through this whole entire process again. But it's just a simple right of way. I asked for the commissioner's signature on it.
Thanks, Gene. Questions on the renewal, Commissioners?
Just let us know if they do kick back so we can put that into our hopper.
Commissioner Richards?
I move to approve the renewal of the BLM right away for JY Road CR number 88 and allow the chairman to sign all necessary documents.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. Item number 12 is a request to donate and transfer an inoperable vehicle to the Wamsutter Fire Department. Joining us this morning is Purchasing Director Marty Durnovich. Good morning, Marty.
Morning, Commissioners. As you have before you, we have this truck that we're asking to be donated was one that Wamsutter Fire Department was using as part of the fire contracts that we have with all of them. Unfortunately, this truck, it's a 2015, has 172,000 miles on it, but the engine went out of it, blew up. Talking to the guys at the shop, they're not willing to put a new engine in it. They said with that many miles, it's not worth it. So Dusty at the Wamsutter Fire went before the Wamsutter Council. They're willing to put the engine in it if we donate them the truck. We feel that's probably a wise thing on our behalf. So that's what we're here for today, is to ask the board to donate the truck as is and have the chairman sign the title.
Very good. Thanks, Marty. Questions on the request, Commissioners? not, I'd entertain a motion to approve of the donation of a 2015 Ford F-250 with 172,887 miles, referencing by title number 04-0825892, a truck with a blown engine that Wamsutter is willing to replace as is. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
And Chantel has the title.
Okay.
Okay. thank you.
Very good. I'll get that signed. Thank you, Marty. Item number 13 is a emergency fire suppression account. And with us is Fire Warden Alan Adams. Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So I believe you all have a copy. Just coming to seek approval or discussion from the Wyoming State Forestry Division. The fiscal year 26 premium is due for us to enroll back into the emergency fire suppression account. So just seeking guidance as to how you would like to proceed.
Very good. And it looks like it's due before July 15th.
Correct.
So will that come out of fiscal year 25 or 26?
25. And
Okay.
it's already in the budget. I have the money there.
Okay. Questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Tillman.
Well, we made the commitment last year to pay the additional dues to get us up to speed. I think these dues are still kind of above what they would normally be because we hadn't been in the account, right?
So that the inception was 2 years, 3 years, 2.5 years ago that we got into it.
Okay,
And
so we're caught up now.
We are caught up. This year's bill is actually $6,000 less than last year's, or premium, I should say, not bill.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I think the first year was a significantly
Right.
large one
Mhm.
to buy into the pool, and then now it's based on valuation.
Correct. If you have not been to enter into that agreement, your assessed value of your county times 3 to get into it. So just for clarification, if we were not to renew this year and wanted to get into it next year or further down the road, then just be aware that we'd have to pay 3 times the amount.
Additional comments, questions? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the participation in the fiscal year 26 emergency fire suppression account in the amount of $60,341.62 and authorize the chairman to sign.
So
Is-
moved.
oh,
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it. The next item, commissioners, is item number 14. We have a memo prepared for the financial outlook and county funding priorities. This largely came, I'll just give credit where credit's due. Commissioner Richards and I had a discussion kind of going along the lines of what we spoke about this morning with some of the different changes coming forth, or what appear to be coming forth from the state legislature, and obviously our evaluation and kind of our budget forecast. And so Commissioner Richards more or less prepared this letter and asked that I place it on the agenda for discussion today. So that is the purpose of trying to give, I guess, in particular, some of these outside agencies time to prepare for what may be, could be some significant cuts ahead of the budget cycle. Commissioner Richards, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Mr. Chairman, last year, we, in our meetings, as we talked budgets, we asked all of the outside entities to go to Governor Gordon's Wyoming Grant Assistance Program and start looking for other sources of funding. It's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of directly funding NGOs, though I have still voted to support some at a lower level, but our budgets are increasingly getting tighter. I don't want to see us in a position where we have to lay people off, where we have to stop supporting our component agencies. Last year, we already made significant cuts to our capital budgets. The the tens and tens of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance on our county facilities continues to grow. And we're sending several $1 million to NGOs, really with no process, no contracts. And I think this is probably the only government outside maybe the cities that funds NGOs with a process that isn't an extensive grant request process. And I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think it's government's job to continue to do that. As always, as we get to our budget, I will still address each application individually and on its merit. But I think it's important that we prepare those outside organizations to start looking for different funding streams than Sweetwater County. With that in mind, I prepared the language of this memo and asked Chairman West to include it in our agenda for discussion and or approval. My intent with this was to send it specifically to the NGOs. I know under our outside agencies, in our budget, we also include intergovernmental agencies, joint powers boards, and that isn't what this is intended for. This is intended for specifically for NGOs that we directly fund. So with that, I would like some discussion. If everybody thinks sending a memo like this out is a good idea. I know some local media initially reported it as we're sending them this memo, but it's on the agenda for discussion, and it would take this board to approve sending it. But that's my recommendation, is we send this letter or a letter like it out to the NGOs we fund and ask them to be prepared, because I think deep cuts are coming.
Thanks, Commissioner. Feedback or discussion, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jones?
I think it's only fair and realistic that we do this. I mean, certainly nobody likes to find out that funding is going to be cut, but I would think now would be a good time to learn that, rather than when they've built their budgets kind of contingent on money they plan to receive from us. And I think it's also important to reinforce that, this was, if I remember right, Commissioner Richards said he mentioned this in your budget before I was appointed. So this is 2-ish years old, this topic anyway, or this direction. And so it's not something that just crept up, but certainly in light of what might happen in Cheyenne, and who knows what that is, but I just think this is incredibly appropriate to let folks know that something might be different real soon.
Yeah, and I think some of that feedback we received last year was some of these, I guess, NGOs were taken back by the cuts that we made, even though we had kind of sent a similar message, more or less asking the budget request to come in flat, and some of them increased. And so part of the idea behind this is to try and get out ahead of it the best we can, to give those a heads up that it's likely that even a flat request this year may not be granted. So Commissioner Tillman, you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think as we work through the budget process, I mean, there are some governmental entities that we do work with. NGOs, I think, are a different matter. They don't have any affiliation with government usually. Is that the direction?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tillman, yes, my intent here is to send this to NGOs, not to intergovernmental agencies, not to the joint powers boards that we belong to. Some NGOs, we have some specific contract services they provide, and I consider those funding streams separate, though some of those same ones also ask for a larger distribution beyond our contractual obligations. So my proposal would be we send this to every NGO that we fund.
Further discussion?
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve sending this letter as presented with our great staff's ability to make it look really good on a piece of paper and get our signature lines on it and send it to all the NGOs that we have previously funded, and also provide it to any new applicants that intend to apply for county funding.
Very good. We do have a motion to approve the memo to be sent out to NGOs and new applicants accordingly, with little minor tweaks in some of the headings there, allowing the body of commissioners to sign. And that motion has been moved by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? Hearing none,
I'd
all-
like to see a list though, before that letter's sent, a list of what you're considering NGOs.
before you vote on it, you mean?
No, I'll vote on it, but I would just like to see the list.
Okay.
Happy to sit down with you.
I think you already have started that.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. The last item on regular business this morning is a budget schedule for the 2025-26 budget, with the current funding request forms and current information forms. Joining us is accounting specialist Rebecca Romero. Good morning to you.
Good morning. So last week I did wrap up everything with ClearGov and we have everything set to go. So some changes to what I previously sent you. I do have the training set for the component units and the department heads for March 4th. And the capital request will open on March 5th. And then on April 15th, I didn't know if you guys wanted to have a workshop and have your own training, a reviewer training. I'd be happy to send you the video beforehand and then you can decide, or we can just set it for April 15th, like a workshop after your regular meetings.
Any preference, commissioners?
I'll be gone 4th and 5th.
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't mind seeing the video, and then if we are comfortable with it, we don't need a training, but if we want it, we can still have it.
Yeah, I think we can start with that, and if we need to tweak our workshop, then we'll try and include it afterwards, if that works for you.
Yeah, the reviewer training it's a really simple video, just because it just kind of lets you know what the difference is between notes and comments and how to look at things, but it's not to change anything. So it's not a major training thing.
Okay.
And then on Tuesday, May 6th, I know that you guys wanted to cut down on the budget workshops. So I only have like one major workshop scheduled for the 20th, but I wanted to give you the option to have another one or on the 6th.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure one's enough. This is a complicated process, and if we can get through it on an earlier workshop, then we can shorten the next one, but I would feel more confident if we had two scheduled.
Okay, and we'll get that on the schedule then. So are there any other changes that you wanted to make to the budget schedule?
It looked pretty standard from my standpoint, Rebecca. I know there's some change with just the newer software and getting people trained up with that, but it looks like you've got a plan for that. So from what I can see, it seems like that should work just fine, but I'd welcome any other feedback.
How's the ClearGov? Do you feel that it's going to do what we want it to?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been, I rewrote the 2025 budget book that I sent you all that I did on ClearGov, which I should mention the component or the outside agencies I have broken down now into optional and committed. So if you look at the 2025 budget book that I emailed you last week, the optional ones are the ones that would probably get the memo that.
Thank you.
I guess one question I would have for the commissioners, we've had a lot of discussion about facilities, and obviously we've got the Public Works Combined Facility under construction right now. We've got the capital committee that's going to go through and make recommendations, but do we as a board want to kind of have a facilities workshop to identify some of the different buildings and future direction that we can give, I guess, some guidance to, or do you think that's necessary?
I think it's necessary. I think we need to talk it out. We have a lot of facilities that we probably need to remove from our books and other facilities that we might need to repurpose. And sometimes it's hard to do sitting up here on the dais with our agenda format. So I'm with you. I think I'd like to see a workshop to have those discussions.
That would be best, probably early on before the capital committee convenes, I would assume. So we'll work on that. But other than that, I think your timeline is
Okay. I'll say, yeah, so the
doable.
capital requests are due by the 21st from everybody.
I'll get with
He
Gene and
left.
see, yeah, what he thinks on that, and we'll try and come up with a plan. I'll keep you in the loop.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Tillman.
Well, it's like the Joint Telecommunications Center. I mean, they have some pretty heavy equipment upgrades coming up. Are they in part of the capital?
Mr. Chairman, no, as a joint powers board, they write their budgets and
Right.
basically send us a bill. But they are willing to listen to our needs. I know that wasn't necessarily the case in years past, but that board is pretty responsive to our needs. And if we tell them there's no extra money, then they'll do the best they can to stay within it.
Well, I think it's something that we need to consider, though, just the back of our mind when we have those facility workshops, that this is a big bill that we might.
As joint powers boards, though, they're responsible for their own capital, and we're just kind of their checkbook.
Well, they used to have a reserve account, then that was taken away from them in 2022 or something. So they may not have reserves for big expenses. I'm giving you a heads up.
We may not either.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the funding request for the outside agencies, I attached that to the agenda as well. It's it's just a different layout, but it's all the same questions that we had last year.
I don't see that here.
We talked about streamlining those questions down, some of them.
You got much
I'm not
feedback on
sure.
those? I guess budget forms from it? No, everyone's
Mm-mm, nope. I
pretty
think they
standard
just
on it.
kind of do what they're asked. They're pretty good about it. For the capital or for the component units, it's basically the same form. That way you could still see their cash on hand and reserves and whatnot. It's just that how they turn it in is going to be different for them since they're doing theirs on ClearGov. But it's all the same questions for them as well.
Okay. How's the ClearGov software working out? You getting
It's been great.
familiar and
Mhm.
think it'll be beneficial during the process?
I believe so. I just started the operating Friday. And so I haven't started projections or anything yet. I just got it all set up on Friday. And I recreated capital from 2025.
Okay. What else? What else do you need from us? Just a green light?
Yep.
Any other feedback or suggestions, commissioners?
I don't think so.
Well, I think we'll roll with it, and if we need to adjust along the way, we'll accommodate accordingly, but hopefully it's a little easier for everyone after everyone gets up to speed with ClearGov, and we can hopefully streamline the process. I mean, it's probably what I would argue the most important thing that we do up here, and so it's certainly not something you want to rush, but at the same time, I think sometimes government overcomplicates the budgeting process when, historically operations are what they are. And so it's more or less a matter of just tackling, what we're willing to spend on capital improvements and things like that. So I'm anxious to see what comes about with the new software, and hopefully it improves our process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And let us know if we can help.
All right, will do. And then I'll just check in with you about the capital workshop then.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Rebecca.
I have one more question. Do you send a letter to all the entities that we have been funding, or
I'm doing that.
notify, you're going to send them all a letter?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm gonna send them the budget schedule and a letter.
And let them know about ClearGov?
The component units and the department heads, yes. Outside agencies are still just doing the same process, and I'll enter that information for them and attach the form to
Oh,
their.
okay.
So the outside agencies we won't be doing those through ClearGov. I'll be doing those myself.
Do you feel like we could streamline some of those questions, though? It seemed like we asked a million questions and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not, those questions were decided on a few years ago and I just.
Well, bless his soul, Commissioner Lloyd was a detailed person and I was trying to streamline it. And we end up with more than what we had. So.
I mean, we can definitely streamline them. I mean, if you tell me what to take out, I definitely can do that.
I think a lot of that could be taken out of there.
Mr. Chairman, let me go back. What date were we planning on sending that letter?
We have time to change midstream, or do we go with it this year and then try to work it out?
It wouldn't take me long to change it.
Am I reading that right? March 10th is when the funding requests will go out?
Yes, I'll send them the budget schedule today and just kind of let them know what's going on, because we usually send the budget schedule out and post it on our website a couple weeks before it even opens.
Okay. So I guess potentially at our next
Mhm.
meeting, we could make a change. We have reduced it from
Yeah.
Commissioner Tolman's work in the years previous. That was 17 pages for one
I know.
entity,
it's-
but
it's very,
it's,
very long.
I never have really liked it. I mean,
Well, I
there
think
are
there's
pieces
some
of it, if it's
key-
filled out properly, that are very beneficial, but a lot of them don't fill those key pieces out. And so, I don't know, I do believe we could streamline them.
Maybe you could highlight in yellow the ones you think maybe are not really useful also.
And do you definitely want to keep in like the cash in hand and reserves and things like that though, correct? Okay. Yep, we can definitely do that.
We'll be in touch. Sounds like we
Thank
got a
you.
lot of work to do over the next
Okay.
couple weeks.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
We were going to start on this earlier and I forgot about it.
And you'll be in DC, I might remind you. So I guess it's on us.
I guess.
Yeah.
That concludes the regular business before us this morning, Commissioners. We do have 2 items to discuss in executive session. One being a legal matter and the other real estate. I don't anticipate taking action upon coming out, but some of that might depend on the discussion. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. We are now in executive.